Hi there, welcome back. This session is going to feature our guidance team, and it's a chance for you to ask any questions you might have about student funding. Liam from our guidance team will be joining me in a few minutes, but first he's recorded a short video for you to watch.
Hi, my name's Liam Thompson. I'm a student advisor and I'm part of the guidance team. I'm here to tell you all about student funding. Now, what funding you can get will depend on your own personal circumstances and what course you're doing. If you're studying under HNC level and are age 16 or 17, you will normally be assessed for EMA. That's the Education Maintenance Allowance. That's £30 per week. This is income assessed against parental income for the last tax year. If you're aged 18 to 24, you will normally be assessed for the parentally dependent bursary. This is a weekly amount of around £84, and again, this is income assessed against parental income for the last tax year. If you're 25 or over, you will be assessed for the self-supporting bursary. Now, this is a weekly amount of around £106, and if you're living with a partner, it will be income assessed against their income for the last tax year. If you're under 25, you can still qualify as a self-supporting student if you meet any of the following. You have supported yourself through benefits or earnings for a 36-month period, you're estranged from your parents, you have a child dependent on you, you have had your own address for the last 3 years. If you have care experience within the UK, for example, you have been looked after by your local authority, you have been in kinship care, have been in foster care, or had any other experience with the care system, you may qualify for the care experience bursary, which is around £200 per week. I strongly encourage you to inquire about this if you think this might apply to you. When you apply for funding, you're automatically assessed for travel costs and course materials. To qualify for travel costs, you do need to live more than 2 miles away from your campus. How to apply for funding. When you accept your conditional offer or unconditional offer for your course, you should have then received an email with instructions on how to activate your funding account. For any students that are on benefits out there, I would encourage you to please speak to your benefits office because coming to study full time sometimes can have an effect on your benefits. For any students studying at HNC or above, the majority of your funding will be applied for via SAAS, via the SAAS website, saas.gov.uk. When you're applying, make sure to apply for the tuition fees, and there's also the option to take out a loan if you want it, bursaries, loan parent grant, and they also have their care experience bursary as well. Other funding that is available via the college, students can apply for registered childcare course towards timetable classes and mandatory placements. This fund is income assessed. With this fund, we take the student's income into account, and if they're living with a partner, we take their income into account as well. Please bear in mind the college may not cover all of your childcare costs. Another fund available to students is the Discretionary Fund. Now, this is a fund to help students who are experiencing financial hardship. So please, if at any point in the year you find yourself in a difficult financial situation, please come and speak to us in the guidance team. You can apply for the Discretionary Fund via your online funding account. However, you will need to speak to the guidance team before you apply. The guidance team also offers support in UCAS, Job Zone. We have our own Job Zone website, that's jobzone.edinburghcollege.ac.uk. We also offer support in money management, accommodation and homelessness. If you're having any difficulties or have any questions, you can join us on our virtual drop-ins via the Microsoft Teams page where you can chat live with our team. These drop-ins are held 2 times a day from 10 till 12 and from 2 till 4, or you can email us at guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk. Thank you.
So that was Liam discussing student funding, and here he is now to answer your questions. So morning, Liam.
Morning, Jack. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, very well. Very excited to answer some questions here. We get some good ones.
Yeah, we've got some coming in already,
Okay.
but please keep firing them in as we're getting through them. So the first one is, can students get help with applying to UCAS?
Absolutely. The guidance team do help with the UCAS application process. We do, at some point throughout the year, we will go into some of your classes, perhaps in an LDT tutorial, and do some UCAS workshops. In the meantime, though, if you've got any other questions about UCAS, I would say email guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk or ucas.help@edinburghcollege.ac.uk.
Perfect, grand, thank you, Liam. The second question is, when and how will we know if our course funding has been approved by the college for lower level courses?
Right, so generally speaking, the turnaround time just now is about 4 weeks for your your bursary, your EMA applications. Now that's 4 weeks from the date that you provided all of your documents. So we do hope that these applications will be done within that time period, but obviously give or take, sometimes there can be complications with applications. So my advice would be to make sure you're checking your emails, because if you have submitted your application along with your documents, it might be that we email you asking you for further documents. So just make sure you're answering that, because that will speed up the whole process.
And what, just to follow up on that, what kind of examples of documents are you talking about there that students should maybe have ready in preparation, just to sort of make sure there's no bumps in the road?
Right, so identification would be one. Passport, driving license, birth certificate, and again, depending on what your personal circumstances are, it could be that we need parental income. So if you are a parentally dependent student, we would need parental income for the last tax year. So that would be your mum and dad's P60s. If you're living with a partner, it would be your partner's P60s. So if you have a look around and make sure you've got them to hand. Also things like tax credit award notices. So if you're on working tax credit, or your parents are on working tax credit, if you have a look around for the tax credit award notice, there should hopefully be a new one that's just possibly just arrived in the post around about July. If you're on universal credit, we would want to see a universal credit statement. Now, you will be able to access that through looking at your online universal credit account. So if you've never logged into that, I would have a go at logging in, having a look at it, and making sure all the information is there.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Liam. Next question is it true that you can still get help with funding even if both parents earn enough?
Well, it depends, because there is a threshold. So depending again on what your personal circumstances are, there is a threshold where if you come over a certain amount, you might not necessarily get bursary funding. But saying that, if you are in that position where you think you might not get funding, I would encourage you to come and speak to us in the guidance team, because there might be some other funding that we could look at. So for that, again, email the guidance team at edinburghcollege.ac.uk.
And would that apply for HE level students as well, who would be going through SAAS for their
right? So that
sort of threshold?
That's slightly different. So if you're applying for SAAS, you'd apply through the SAAS website, saas.gov.uk, and you'd be applying for the tuition fees. And you also have the option to apply for the loan. Now, there's two different types of loan. You can get the income assessed loan through SAAS, which is the higher rate one, or there's the non-income assessed one. So if you didn't, if your parents earned well and above a certain amount, you could just apply for the non-income assessed loan, which would mean you'd be able to get it regardless of what they earn.
Right, yeah. Brilliant. How does payment work for, well, firstly, bursaries or sort of FE level courses? Is it monthly, weekly, or what's
it's fortnightly in arrears. So even if your bursary is completely processed and you received your award letter, if you have a look at the payment table, you will notice that the first payment isn't actually until the 17th of September, and that's to reflect on starting on the 30th of August. So you'll get 2 weeks worth of payments every fortnight, but the first one isn't until the 17th of September. So we do hope that you have prepared for that.
And what's the sort of schedule for HE level courses through SAAS?
HE, again, if everything's done and dusted and processed, I am hearing that the first loan payments and that have already been paid to some students, so they should have received that. If you haven't and you've received your award letter, please check with us again. We're doing the Student Services Online Hub on the Teams page now, which is between 10 and 12 and 2 and 4, Monday to Friday. So if you've got any questions like that, or you think you should have been paid and you haven't, just jump on that and somebody will be there to answer you.
Brilliant, yeah, and just to follow up on that, the drop-ins are on the Student Services Hub on Microsoft Teams. That's your Edinburgh College team, so you'll see the tab on the left-hand side menu bar. The next question is, I have sent a written appeal. When can I expect any kind of response or recognition that it's been received?
Okay, so with appeals, that has to go to an appeal panel. Now that can normally take up to a fortnight. So if it has been over a fortnight since you have put in that appeal, I would jump on to the guidance Student Services Hub drop-in and just ask there, or email guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk, where we can get your personal information and we can chase that up for you with the funding manager.
Brilliant, thanks, Liam. Plenty of questions coming in, so thank you very much, and do keep them coming. The next one is, I have not yet received any confirmation or denial of my application to SAAS. Can I lose my position in the course, or do I have to pay fees as such until SAAS respond?
If you have applied for your SAAS funding, so the big one being tuition fees, we won't come chasing you for that just now. It might be worth chasing that up with SAAS to ask what is happening with your SAAS application. Definitely, 100%. They do also on the SAAS website. They've got like an online chat thing that you can just jump on and quickly chat to somebody, or obviously there's a phone number you can phone, but the online chat thing on the website's worth it, so it might be worth jumping onto that, or again, come and speak to us and we could chase out with SAAS for you as well.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question is, can I still apply for childcare at this point just now?
Absolutely, you can still apply for childcare. Please do, the sooner the better. Even if you think you're not going to do it, get yourself familiar with the application process. Maybe even log in and create an application and just look at it, without submitting it. It's definitely worthwhile.
Brilliant. Can I get SAAS over the age of 60?
Over the age of 60, I would need to double check that one, to be honest with you. I do know that you may have issues getting the loan when you're over a certain age, but tuition fees wouldn't be an issue. It would just perhaps be the loan that you might run into some problems.
And students could probably get more information on the SAAS website, which is saas.gov.uk. The next question is around the Care Experience Bursary. So if I have been awarded the Care Experience Bursary, can I still also apply for travel funding as I live more than 2 miles away from the college?
Right, okay, so when you put in for your Care Experience Bursary, you'll have also been assessed for travel costs if you live more than 2 miles away from the campus. So if travel costs aren't included in the award that you've received, it's probably because your class is being taught online at the moment. So if that adjusts and all of a sudden you do have to come into campus, your award will get reassessed and it will then include the travel, as long as you live more than 2 miles away. Yep, okay. Absolutely.
And I guess they could check that with the team through the
Check that with the team, yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. The next question is, I'm on universal credit just now. I have applied for a bursary during my UC payments, but if I'll be studying full time, I'm no longer entitled to university credit. That means I'll not receive any money anymore. Should I reapply for bursary with my new circumstances?
Yeah, so the first thing I always say about if you're on universal credit is check with the benefits office if you can remain on universal credit whilst you're studying. If the answer is no, you would apply for a full bursary. So that would mean that, though, that your universal credits have more than likely stopped. So it's really going to depend on what your personal circumstances are. For some people that are on universal credit, if they're, say, a lone parent or they're living with a partner, they might be able to stay on universal credit. But if you're just somebody that's living on your own, you're 24, 25, it'd be likely you'd have to come off your universal credit. If you're on universal credit at any point, because basically with the bursaries, if you're on universal credit, we would assess your application and we would assess you with the universal credit rate, which is the £28 per week, and you would just stay on your universal credit. If your universal credit stops at any point or you're made to come off, your claim is ended, you would just let us know and we would reassess your application to then include the bursary maintenance amount instead of the universal credit rate.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that made sense. I don't know. If I'm speaking too fast, then I just come to the drop-in or email to get the guidance.
Yeah. Can you apply for travel if you live more than 2 miles away, but you're staying in college accommodation?
Do you mean to travel from campus to campus? Like if you were like Midlothian but studying at another campus?
That's not clear in the question, but if that's something that, is that something that we would?
You would be assessed for travel costs through the bursary application, automatically that would happen. Even if you sometimes get travel rates for holiday periods to go home as well, and that's all automatically done when you are applying for the bursary.
Okay,
yeah.
I think that's maybe relevant to this question, possibly the term time. And non-term time home addresses. So if you've got any questions, you can follow up on the Student Services Hub on Teams or email the guidance team, guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk. Next question is, I've not received confirmation of my SAAS funding. Is this something I need to get fixed?
It really depends on when you'd applied. If you've only applied like sort of 3-4 weeks ago, I wouldn't worry too much. It wouldn't hurt to jump on the SAAS website and speak to somebody in the chat. We do see some circumstances where, the courses have started and people are still waiting on their SAAS funding coming through and the bursary coming through. If you are in that situation and you're panicked, financially, that would be where the guidance team would step in. So come and speak to us via the team drop-in on Teams or guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk. Don't let yourself stress about finances. That comes.
Brilliant. Back to travel costs. When do they start?
Travel costs are exactly the same as your bursary. So what you'll notice is if you have the instalment plan, like you get your bursary award and you'll get the payment table, and you'll see the first payment date is the 17th. That is the same for travel.
Okay.
And you'll notice that if you go right down the payment table, you'll notice on the weeks that it's a holiday, because the amount will reduce a little bit. That's because that's a payment that doesn't include your travel costs.
So the payments are one payment. There isn't a separate one for bursary and for travel. It just
Yeah,
comes as one.
They come in the
amount.
same fortnightly thing.
So when they're on online banking, they'll see one transaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for example, like a self-supporting bursary is maintenance amount, off the top of my head, is roughly about £108. And then on top of that, you would get your travel, which is about £13. So your payment weekly would be looking at like 121 or something. So you would notice going down that the payments are dropped on the holiday weeks because you're not getting your travel costs.
Brilliant. That makes sense. Discretionary funding. Can I apply for discretionary funding at any point in the year if I qualify?
Yes, you can, but you can't apply for the discretionary funding until you've started your course. Feel free, I'll take you through the process on how you apply for discretionary funding. So the discretionary fund application is in your online application account on the funding, on your homepage. But to be able to access it, you do need to speak to a member of the guidance team first. So what you would do is, if you want to apply for the discretionary fund, you would email guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk. Can I apply for the discretionary fund? We take you through a few questions, and then we at that point, if we made a decision, yes, you're eligible to apply, we would enable your online funding account. You can go onto your funding account, you'll be able to apply, and it's much like your bursary application. You can upload the documents and everything within that. You can't apply for that until the 30th of August. Okay. When we start next week.
Okay, so that sort of touches on the next question.
And sorry, obviously, just to go on to that, and if you don't actually start attending, we won't actually pay any discretionary funding until you actually start attending classes. So it might be that things start next week, but your course doesn't start till the 7th of August.
Okay. We've got another discretionary funding question, which is, I guess, a wee bit similar but different. Can I apply for discretionary funding while I'm waiting on my first payment from the college to help with buying books and equipment for studying?
Generally speaking, we do hope that students have prepared that the first, because it is fortnightly in arrears, and we have made that clear, so your first payment isn't till the 17th of September. Each circumstance, we'll look at each person's individual circumstances. So, if you are in that scenario, don't think you'll be able to get to the 17th, email us and we'll have a conversation and we'll see what we can do.
Grand. I'm just scrolling through the questions. I think I've lost where I am. Where are we now? Is there any funding a lone parent can apply for that is staying on benefits during when they're studying? Sorry.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, there's the loan parent grant if you're doing higher education SAAS funding. There's the loan parent grant that you can get, and also if you've any childcare funding, there's a loan parent grant. You can still, like, if you are on benefits and that, if you really are struggling, we can sometimes help you through the discretionary fund, but that would be, we wouldn't be able to help you with living costs through the discretionary fund. It would need to be for a specific thing, a lot of the time related to your course, to be able to help you with it, because otherwise it can affect your benefits. But if you are in that scenario, again, just come and speak to us, because even if we don't know the answer, or even if we're not the ones that are able to fund you, we will sit with you and we'll try and, we'll find a solution for you.
Okay. On travel funding, another question, do students need to provide sort of proof of bus fares or anything like that?
No. Basically what we do is when we're assessing the bursary awards, we just look at your home postcode and the campus you're attending. And if you live more than 2 miles away from that campus, you're going to get travel costs. If you live within a 2 mile radius, you won't get travel costs.
Perfect. Thank you.
You don't need to come in with bus tickets or anything, although people have done that in the past.
Next question is from Leah. My parents earn just above the threshold, but I'm going to be self-sufficient when I move out. Is there any help I can get?
Well, again, that'll depend on your personal circumstances, because the way that bursary works, if you're under 25, you're sort of deemed as parentally dependent, so we would go on parental income. But sometimes when you're under 25, we can class you as self-supporting if you meet a certain criteria. So if you're under 25, if you have worked for 3 years, been on benefits for 3 years, had your own address for 3 years, have a child, or estranged from your parents, any of these things we could assess you as self-supporting, so we wouldn't even need to look at your parental income. So if that's something, so if you've had a job for 3 years, it's definitely worth applying for that self-supporting bursary, because one thing, you don't need to bother your parents asking them for income information, and you can sometimes get slightly more money.
Brilliant. I am returning. Oh, I've just lost it again. Here we go. I'm a mature student returning to higher education. However, I was raised under kinship care when I was younger. Do I still qualify for the care experience bursary?
So if you're higher education, you're applying for SAAS, I would imagine. You may qualify for their care experience bursary. I know that kinship care does come into it normally, but I would contact them. Contact SAAS. Provide whatever paperwork you have. So if you dealt with like a council or any kind of social worker, if you have any kind of letter from them confirming that you're in kinship care, you would provide that. They would look at the information and then would assess it based on that.
Brilliant. We do have lots of support available for students who have been care experienced at the college. That's usually delivered through our learning support team. So you could contact them for more support specific to care experience. I have a student loan and everything has been accepted. I start on the 13th of September. When will I receive my money? As it said, 23rd to 27th of August.
So if he's talking about the loan, if he's not about the SAAS loan, then I do know some students that have already received it because they've done the self-enrollment and everything's been confirmed, so they've received the loan. So in some circumstances, if some student hasn't received it, make sure you've done the self-enrollment and everything, which I presume you have done probably, which is how you're able to watch this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So at that point, again, it wouldn't. I would jump on and ask SAAS just to double check a few things, or email us at guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk and we can just check that everything's gone through on your enrolment and that you're enrolled properly, because sometimes that can be the issue. There is the odd student where that doesn't, something doesn't work.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question is, how do we get student discount? I can answer that one.
And you get a cheeseburger, free cheeseburger. You get
is that still a thing?
I don't know. I hope so. I don't hope so.
Student cards this year will be by default digital. Next week you'll find out more information about how to access those. They'll be hosted on our MyEC app. So you'll receive communication from the college next week on how to download that and how to access your student card. And using the student card, you can get discounts all over the place. And Lothian buses, just on sort of travel theme, they are accepting the digital card as well. So everything's good.
You get cinema. Do you get cinema discount? You used to get a cinema discount.
It's been a while since I was.
It used to be massive because it's so expensive to go to cinema now. I wish I was a student.
The next question is, when I enrolled, I selected the wrong option of payment for my course. Am I able to change that?
It depends what course you're doing. Really, so I would need to kind of look into your individual circumstance, because if it was like a part-time course, it might be slightly different. If it's a full-time further education course, it'll be more than likely that it will be a sort of fee waiver. Like you would apply for remission of fees and you wouldn't have to do anything. Saying that though, as I don't know your personal circumstances, I would encourage you to get in touch with us, definitely, so I can check that out.
Brilliant. Me and my partner are both studying at Edinburgh College, and we have a son who is going to the nursery. At the moment, our timetables are the same, so only my partner applied for childcare costs. Do I need to apply as well?
No, because that would be two different things. What I would say is to put a wee note at the end of the childcare application, just stating that your partner is also studying.
Okay.
So that, they don't merge.
Brilliant. If I haven't stayed in the UK for up to 3 years, what funding support can I apply for?
Again, depending on what course you're doing, if you haven't studied here for 3 years, and you need to make sure that you've applied to the EUSS, the European Settlement Scheme. So if you do that, the only other option you'd have for funding would be perhaps if you were, we could assess you as a migrant worker. So if you were working in a job that is related to the course you're doing, we could possibly look at that. So I would still encourage you to fill out a funding application, and then we can look at your circumstances and we can see if there's any way of funding you. But generally speaking, if you do have the less than 3 years, you wouldn't necessarily get funding. Okay. You'd be okay for the tuition fees, but for the bursary funding side of things, unless we can assess you as a migrant worker or the child of a migrant worker. So like I say, I encourage you to still put in the application and we'll have a look at it.
Brilliant, thanks, Liam. The next question is, I've applied for DSA funding from SAAS, but I haven't received any confirmation from them yet that they've received or approved the application. Do I need to have this approved before the course starts?
DSA, that is normally done through our student support team. I think it's our student support team here at Edinburgh College that do help with the DSA applications from SAAS. So we could possibly look into that for you. Again, I would encourage you to contact SAAS about that as well, but we could probably look into that for you as well.
So
here at the college.
join a drop in on Teams or email guidance again.
Yeah.
Brilliant. In terms of forms of ID and stuff, my passport expired a few months ago. Is that still a valid form of ID?
No, we would need a valid passport. So there, if you have anything else, it would be better suited. So if you have a birth certificate or a driving license or a young Scot card. My voice is going raspy there.
The next question is childcare only available for courses above HNC?
No, childcare is available for further education courses.
For all courses?
For all courses,
yep.
Pretty much, yeah.
In the holidays, does EMA stop?
You don't get paid EMA in the holidays, unfortunately.
Okay. Travel costs, are they only for students over 16? Or are they for...
Yeah, I mean, well, anybody attending the college will be 16. If you are like under 16, then any kind of travel costs that you would get would need to be applied for through your local council, or I would actually encourage you to speak to your school. Because if you're 15 and you turn 16 perhaps in the November or December, your funding from actual college won't kick in until the January, unfortunately. So you can still put the application in for your EMA, for your bursary, and it would still get looked at.
Brilliant, thank you. Is there a link anywhere to get a letter for council tax, or do they just contact reception?
You should be able to go to the council, your relevant council's website and apply for exemption through there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they can contact the reception team too?
Yeah, they can. It's the reception team that deal with it. I think their address is reception@Edinburgh College.
It is, yeah, reception@edinburghcollege.ac.uk.
Thanks.
Next question is, can I apply for bursary in my HNC? Sorry, lovely little wee drink of water.
So sorry.
Can I apply for bursary in my HNC course, or is it just SAAS?
Basically, all your funding for HNC and above, most of your funding is applied for via SAAS. So that would be your tuition fees, the loan if you want it, and the bursary as well, the independent or young student bursary. So you can get a bursary, but it's done via SAAS. If you're doing an HNC, HND, the only funding you apply for via the college, if you needed it, would be discretionary funding or childcare funding. Brilliant. Everything else is SAAS. Make sure you tick the box to say you want your tuition fees paid for. That's the big one.
Cool. My table of fortnightly pay doesn't include travel money. Is this due to learning from home?
Yeah, basically with your award letter, you hopefully should have got like a little paragraph on there if travel expenses weren't included in the award. Basically just saying that your award will be adjusted if all of a sudden you need to start attending classes. So don't worry if you haven't got travel costs. If you haven't got travel costs because you live more than 2 miles away, you live less than 2 miles away, sorry, it should say that on the award letter as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So the next two questions are around discretionary funding.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is it available for broadband? Due to how expensive that can be, and the second one is how many times can you apply for discretionary funding in the 1 year?
Right, okay. So with how many times you can apply for discretionary funding, there's no actual cap on it, but what I would say is if you are applying more than one time, we will meet with you and sit down and look at your personal circumstances and really try and help you so you don't end up keep ending up in the same situation over and over again. Regarding broadband and Wi-Fi issues, like paying for things like that again would be something you'd apply for through the discretionary fund. So guidance@edinburghcollege.ac.uk. It's going to get a lot of emails today.
Yeah. If I've not got my bursary back before the start of my term, will I not be paid?
So do you mean if your bursary isn't processed in time? So it can, some bursary applications, unfortunately, sometimes people can wait end of September, October into November. If you're in those, if you're in that situation, that would be where the discretionary fund comes in. So if you're in that scenario, you've not heard anything, you've submitted all your documents and you're still waiting. Obviously, check with us about your funding application and we'll chase that up for you. But we would, at that point, probably refer you apply to the discretionary fund. Yeah.
Okay, so there's funding in place.
Exactly. If your bursary isn't done and dusted, you don't have your award letter, we will be able to help you through the discretionary fund.
Thank you.
Provided you've done everything, because you need to make sure you've provided all the documents and everything. So we always check everything like that first.
The next question is, this may sound silly, there is no silly questions, that's what we're here for. What is the difference between SAAS and discretionary funding?
So SAAS funding, basically, SAAS is the company that does all the funding for HNCs and above. So basically SCQF 7 level or above, right up to degree, everything like that. That is what SAAS funding is. Discretionary funding is something that comes from the college, and that is something you would apply for if basically you're in a sort of bad financial situation, like you're unable to pay your bills at the end of the month, you've got any financial worries at all, or perhaps some funding hasn't come in through yet. That's what the discretionary fund is. It's basically, it's a hardship fund. That's what it is.
Brilliant, thank you. Next question is, I think it was mentioned yesterday, but just to clarify, do students get discounts on bus passes / rider cards? So I believe so.
Yeah, you get a student rate. Yeah, you should get, if you take all your
our Students Association website, EXA, they have a Go Green section, or in sustainable and active travel. So if you visit there, there'll be lots of information on there for you too. Does everyone get the same travel costs, or does it depend? The further away you are, the more you get, or
if you're in the Edinburgh area, you'll get the set amount basically where the Lothian buses go, and it should be enough so that you can get the monthly bus pass. That's how much we equate it to. If you live outside that area, the amounts is obviously going to go up. Yeah, so it will depend on where you live. But if you're within the Edinburgh area, you're going to all be getting the same. But once it gets past that, it starts getting a bit, different rates over here, over there.
Yeah. What happens if you have holidays booked in the first 4 weeks of term? Will you miss payments?
What I would say is I would encourage you to speak to your learning development tutor. They're your go-to for all of your attendance issues. And if you make them aware that you're going to be off, really near the start of term, that would definitely help you. In terms of actually getting paid for your bursary, you wouldn't get paid if you're on holiday, no.
Okay, thanks, Liam. Are tuition fees and EMA two different things, or are they the same?
They're different things. So EMA, which is the Education Maintenance Allowance, is something that we pay to 16 and 17-year-olds. It's £30 a week. Tuition fees is, the cost of the actual course. So if you're doing a further education course, it'd be likely that the tuition fees are sort of automatically covered for you. You'll get a fee waiver for them, and it's not really something that you have to worry about. If you're doing higher education, HNC, normally your tuition fees will be covered by SAAS, but you actually have to apply for that to happen. So when you're applying to SAAS, make sure you tick that box. I think I've said that a few times.
Discretionary funding again, what sort of information would you expect students to have with them, or any documents to support their application?
So at a minimum for the discretionary fund, we would need identification. Now, you don't need to provide identification if you've already submitted a bursary application, because we'll have ID on file for you. But we do need 4 weeks bank statements for all of your bank accounts.
Okay, so it'd be good for the students to come prepared with that.
Yeah, at a minimum. If there's any, if you need help with a specific thing, perhaps an invoice or a bill or something, if you could provide that. I always look at anything you think is going to help support your application to prove that you're in financial hardship, but at a minimum, the 4 weeks bank statements. If you're a HNC student, so you're getting the loan, to qualify, so this is quite a big one, to qualify for help from the discretionary fund, you need to have taken out the loan from SAAS. So what we ask for is your loan letter that you can access by logging on to your SAAS account on the home page, and you should be able to upload it as a PDF and just include that in your discretionary fund application.
Brilliant, thanks, Liam. And in fact, Thomas has commented in similar, saying that people can log into their SAAS account, click a link at the top which provides the reward letter in PDF format. So anybody asking about their SAAS letters, there's where to go. Oh, sorry, we've missed a question. How do students apply for travel funding?
Travel funding, so that is when you just apply for your general funding. So when you activate your funding account and you see at the top EMA/bursary, you just click that and you start the application. This application is automatically assessing you for travel costs. So you'll automatically be assessed for travel costs within your bursary/EMA application.
Brilliant.
So I was going to say something.
If
if you had additional travel costs that weren't included in your travel award within your bursary for whatever reason, anything like that, we would maybe need to look at possibly helping through the discretionary fund, and for that you'd need to come speak to us at a guidance team.
Brilliant. Where can I see a list of all the different kinds of possible EMA bursary funding types?
Okay, so if you go to the Edinburgh College website and on the top right hand, I think, is that right on the screen? I don't know. You should say student life. If you click that, then you've got funding fees. And if you click on bursary ready reckoner, that's got everything there. So that's got rates, thresholds, incomes, weekly amounts, all the good stuff.
Brilliant. The next question, back to travel funding. Can anyone apply for that if they live more than 2 miles away from campus, or is it just those that have bursary funding in place?
Well, like I say, if you have already got your bursary funding in place, any kind of travel stuff will be included in that. So if you read your bursary award letter, if travel isn't included in that and you live more than 2 miles away, it's likely that you haven't been assessed for travel just because it's online learning at the minute. If it changes to come into class, it'll be reassessed and you'll get the travel costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Can I come onto campus to upload documents for funding?
You can do, although I would encourage you to try and, you can do it on your phone, because if you have the documents, you could literally just take a picture and upload it from there. But if you would be more comfortable with coming in to speak to us, of course, come onto the campuses.
Brilliant. What are the student funding drop-in times? Are they online or can they be done on campus?
So the online one on Teams is, like I said, on the Teams page, 10 till 12 and 2 till 4. At the minute, there is normally somebody available within the student services area Monday to Friday at each campus. There will be a member of the team available.
Brilliant. Will bursary be backdated if you don't get it for several months?
Absolutely, yeah. Provided the only instance where that wouldn't happen would be if you hadn't submitted it. So if you submitted it in, say, October, you're not going to get back payments for when you started, because you should have submitted it.
Okay, brilliant. Am I still able to apply for funding before? Am I still in time to apply for funding before the beginning of my course?
Yes.
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 So get your application in as quickly as you can. How much is discretionary funding? Does that differ depending on
Completely.
circumstance?
It can range from all sorts. There's not a specific award. It's always down to the specific application and what we think the amount that you need to help you in your situation. So that would be impossible to answer, unless it's I don't know. It's impossible to answer.
Okay. Is discretionary funding paid back in the same way as a student loan is?
Discretionary fund, you don't have to pay it back in most circumstances.
Okay,
yeah.
That answers that one. Is there help to buy a laptop? There will be information going out to students next week if students need to apply for support with equipment, laptops, tablets, through our digital support service. So yeah, there'll be more information going out next week, but in the meantime, you can email us at digitalsupportservice@edinburghcollege.ac.uk and just let us know details of your circumstances and somebody will get back to you. When applying for funding, what is the student reference?
Student reference is your EC number.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I get calls at that, but yeah, your matriculation number. I think they're referring to when you log in.
Yeah, so EC number, when you self-enroll and it's part of your Microsoft login account for the college as well, that EC number at the start of your email address, that's your student reference number. The next question is, where can I find a link to apply for transport? So again, on the student life section of the college website, or?
Well, if you've accepted your offer for a place in the course, which I would imagine that you have, you should have then received an email about funding, how to activate your account and how to log into your funding account. So it would be there that you complete a bursary application and we would assess you for travel costs.
Okay. And the last question is, do you still get travel costs if you drive to campus?
Yes, but the amount that you get isn't based on how much sort of money you're spending on petrol. We kind of look at the average amount, the sort of, the least it costs to get you to college, and that would be how much we would pay weekly, as opposed to, well, I've got a diesel big tank and it costs me this. That might not necessarily be what you get in terms of travel costs for the college. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you, Liam. So thank you to everybody for sending in your questions. We hope this has been useful. There will be a recording of this, which will be uploaded to our EC Welcome site, which is welcome.edinburghcollege.ac.uk. So you can watch this back anytime. And remember, you can contact Liam and the guidance team through the Student Services Hub on Microsoft Teams. The next session's at 12. Join us then.